Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Hello and welcome to Whistleblowers. Gordon Smart here, joined as ever by the one and only Mark Clattenburg and Ian Ladyman. He also joins us today. We will be answering one of your questions today.
So rude.
And continuing our all-time 11s, which are causing a bit of a stir. But first off, we've had a big response on Instagram about Manchester United and whether or not they're still a big deal, compared, of course, to local rivals City. And it really kicked off this one, right? Rian Lucy asked, right, are you paid football writers saying Manchester City is a bigger club than Manchester United? So going around the room, yes or no, Mark Clattenburg, are City bigger than United now?
Depends who you support, simple as. If you support United, you're going to say United. You're going to say City. If you look at it commercially, after what we've just talked about last week with the new Puma shirt deal and everything that's going on within Manchester City, financially, you would say it's City. Historically, you will say it's Man United. So it depends which fence you want to sit on. And for me, there's arguments both sides. But at the moment, Man City are the most successful side in Manchester at the moment.
You went around the houses, Ian.
Is that a yes or a no? I'm not quite sure. Just ask me the same question.
Are City bigger than United?
No.
There you are. And I have to say, City are not bigger than United for me.
No, but equally, that wasn't necessarily the debate that we were having. We were talking about the way that City have caught and at the moment seem to have overtaken United from a financial point of view. Yeah. That was what we were talking about. And that in itself is quite a big deal.
I think for 17 years, City have been run better than Manchester United.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so if it continues, and say for sake of argument, we get another 17 years down the line, and all of a sudden it's 25 years since Man United have won the league, and the treble season is by that point 40 years in the rearview mirror. Then we start to have this conversation a different way.
Do you know what I find hard though is that when I look back at Manchester United, you think of Dennis Law, George Best, Busby, and then even Fergie, Scholes, all of that mob, that era. But do you think you look back at City and think about Vincent Kompany and Kevin De Bruyne in the same way you would look back even at the Scholes, Keane, Giggs, Beckham era?
I take your point. Some people will. Because especially the generation that grew up with it, okay? Now, something struck me last year, I was at Centre Parks with the family on our first part of our summer holiday. Not in the north, we were at Longleat in the southwest. And for the first time, I saw kids in the southwest of England wearing Man City shirts. And they weren't Mancunian families on holiday. They were kids born and raised in the south who've started to buy Manchester City shirts and support Manchester City because to them, aged 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they are the team. So just like United used to get that support, City's starting to pick up bits of that as well. And that's why when, for example, Man City there was a big fuss made when City didn't sell out their end for the FA Cup semi-final. Big fuss made about that, okay, against Forest. And the reason that they don't is because when at the moment City is still in that stage of their evolution, that when the Manchester-based City fans don't travel, they don't have all that huge
in the south,
base of fan base in the south that a club like United and Liverpool have.
Yeah.
So they have no one to take up the slack. Yeah. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I've got some sympathy for that.
But I have great sympathy for that. But the evidence of starting to see City shirts turn up in playgrounds in London and in Brighton and in Norwich, that's the evidence that's the next generation. That's the next generation. And the fact they're starting to choose City shirts and maybe not Man United shirts is interesting.
I've got a bit of sympathy, a lot of sympathy actually for City fans, because we've had 10 years of austerity and financial brutality, and the cost of going to London, even for a day, to buy your tickets and have a day out, and the cost of train travel is disgusting in this country.
Yeah.
And I just think, to be asked when your team's successful and you're lucky enough to get to go to Wembley regularly, it's a lot of money, especially if you're taking 2 kids, 3 kids, or a family. It's horrendous.
But that fan base, that platform, City have built that platform by winning so much in the last 10 or 15 years. And if they continue to do so, and if United continue not to do so, then that balance starts to level up.
Do you know what would make City a great club for me is if some of the money they've spent on lawyers, that 30 million quid they could put into free transport for their fans to go to those cup finals. Because I'm telling you now that is just... I'd love to know the figure it would cost for one season as a City fan to go to those cup finals. If you added up, say, a hotel for one night, cost for travel for a family of 4.
There was an incredible statistic, because I remember writing around that game. There's an incredible statistic that since Abu Dhabi takeover of Manchester City, I think City have been to Wembley something like 35 times, for League Cup finals, FA Cup finals, FA Cup semi-finals, Charity Shields, games against Tottenham when they were playing at Wembley. And that's a heck of a lot. And I'm absolutely with you on that. You cannot criticise people for keeping their money, whatever money they've got left these days, in their pocket. But people, Man United fans and other fans will always say, "Oh, but you haven't got a history. You haven't got a history." Liverpool fans said that to Chelsea for years. You haven't got our history. Well, there is such a thing as modern history as well as ancient history, and City have created quite a bit of modern history, and that's important too.
Okay, right. Moving on then. A couple of listener questions for you. Now, Mary asks, for 2 seasons, we've seen all 3 newly promoted teams go straight back down to the Championship. That is quite a statistic, actually. So, do you think these are outliers this season's, Mark? Or do you think this is going to happen again this season? Of the 3 teams promoted, will they go down again?
But the supporters of them teams will say not. But, what we're seeing the last 2 seasons is the teams haven't even been competitive, have they? If you look at Southampton came down with minimal point. I think the worst points, or one of the worst points. The issue you've got is, if you look back, because of this financial fair play, you can't have a rich owner coming in. Nottingham Forest tried it, spent a lot of money, got criticised in different circles for bringing in 28 players because he knew his squad wasn't good enough. They're a championship squad, got in through the playoffs, so they weren't even one of the top sides in the championship. So to be competitive in the Premier League, he had to buy. So he got criticised for buying all them players, which then had an issue with the financial fair play, so he got a points deduction. Lucky enough, they had enough points to survive that points deduction. So unless you get a rich owner, and I can see Sunderland are half trying it, they're trying to get 1 or 2 players in. If they gel, they might have a chance, and I mean a small chance, to try and survive. The first 5-10 games, all the teams that get promoted fight. You looked at, was it Ipswich last year? Ipswich were really, was it last season? Yeah, they were competitive, really competitive for the first 5 to 10 matches. I remember them playing Liverpool, Manchester United, being really competitive. And in the end, over 38 games, it doesn't lie, because after you get over that honeymoon period of another game, it becomes more and more difficult for small squads. So going to that question, can I see these clubs survive? And Leeds, I cannot. It doesn't matter what they're spending. It's not going to be enough to do it. Sunderland's probably the only one that I believe can break into that mould, and it would be a big fight. Because if you look, and I had this argument with a guy, a Man United fan on the train, and he was on about Leeds could survive. And I said, if you look at the teams that finished in the bottom half last year, Tottenham, West Ham, and Manchester United, are you telling me that them 3 teams are going to be any better than them? No. What you've got to rely on is your Brentford or Crystal Palace or Wolves to have a bad season. Wolves have got a great coach. Brentford are the ones that might, and I mean, because they've got a new manager, they're losing a couple of star players. They could be the one, maybe, I'm saying maybe, because they've been established for the last good few seasons. Bournemouth are well established. So who do you see, Leeds or Sunderland, being better off? And I can't see it.
Everton have been toying with the bottom of the division, haven't they, for a few seasons? But it looks like things are beginning to stable off there. Brighton are a solid team, well run. You're struggling really looking at that to see any team.
Well, I think there are a couple of things at play. The thing we know about, which is money.
Yeah.
The financial divide between the Premier League and the Championship gets wider all the time, and that is a problem. I remember watching Leeds and Sheffield United play a big game at Bramall Lane last season, which at the time, those 2 were the top 2 in the Championship at the time. It was relatively entertaining, but I remember Leeds came from behind to win it. I remember thinking, blimey, there's just not enough quality there. at all. Yeah. And I then watched the game when Burnley beat Sheffield United at Turf Moor to confirm their promotion. And I looked at that and thought, there isn't the quality there. So it's very, very difficult. The history tells us that if you can survive for the first season, then you've got a chance, because then you start to really benefit from another season of Premier League money. So teams like Brentford, Brighton, Wolves, Bournemouth have all managed to do that. It's that first season that's difficult. The second thing that's important, and is overlooked here, yes, recruitment's important, coaching. Okay, coaching is important. How did Burnley get up last season? Burnley got up last season by conceding a staggeringly small amount of goals. Yeah. Okay, that to me, if there's going to be a blueprint,
it's coaching.
It's that.
Yeah.
Although someone at Burnley has already said to me, rather worryingly, "Oh, I think we're going to be a bit more expansive this season," and I'm like, no. I described Russell Martin's football at Southampton, new Rangers manager, of course. I described Russell Martin's football at Southampton last season as suicide football. Ipswich weren't far behind when it came to that. Leicester were just sunk by a dreadful dressing room. But one of the problems is the cult. It's almost the cult of Guardiola. Teams come up, coaches come up, especially younger coaches, and they think, this is how you play in the Premier League. This is how you play in the Premier League. You've got to pass. You've got to build from the back. Guys, no, don't
concede.
Don't. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Let alone me sitting here telling people how to coach football teams. But from what I see and what I know is that if you don't concede goals, you don't lose football matches.
Well, Mourinho,
okay,
that's how Mourinho won the league as well, wasn't it?
So if Burnley come up and do that, right, they might get. Although their opening fixtures are horrendous. You talk about honeymoon period. Blimey, Burnley have got the honeymoon from hell. Have a look at their opening 10 fixtures. Unbelievable. So, right, but if you're going to come up, give yourself a platform. Put all those kind of idealistic ideas to one side. Give yourself a platform. Make yourself hard to beat. Use your home games. And thirdly, do well against the teams around you. If you look at a team like Crystal Palace and why they've stayed up for so long, you look at the teams that Crystal Palace tend to beat every season. Yeah. It's all those teams that you mentioned before, Mark.
They don't
beat Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea, but they get their points against the teams that they know are going to be around them, and that can't be a coincidence.
I just want to add one point on Ian tonight, and I totally agree. What used to drive me bonkers last year, and I didn't really analyse the teams going up because it didn't really affect anything, but I started analysing them a bit more. And it drove us bonkers that they tried to play out from the back. They never did that in the Championship. And what happened was the teams, like your Liverpools, your Newcastles, your Cities, all the teams that are high pressing, your Brightons, they were giving the ball away. The goalkeepers were giving the ball away, and they were giving simple goals away. And when you're when a club coming up from the Championship are trying to compete, you can't give away silly goals. And gone are the days, probably because the law changes now, that the ticky-tackle from the back with a goal kick. Teams used to just hit it up front, and then they had players up front that could, chase the ball down, try and win the ball back. But now I watch Championship clubs and they try and play football, and it drives us bonkers.
I remember I used to hear Russell Martin, Southampton would lose again at home and they'd concede a goal, the type of which you're talking about, Mark. And Russell Martin would stand there on Match Today and say, I've got a belief in this style of play. This is what worked for us in the Championship. You're like, Russell, yes, mate, in the Championship, this is a different league.
I think he'll come unstuck in Scotland.
I think he'll talk himself into trouble in Scotland.
I think he's going to be in massive trouble. He'll get eaten alive in Scotland.
I do worry for him. I do worry for him from that point of view. So I think it's about, there's a lot to be said for pragmatism. Dan Fletcher, former Manchester United, a mate of yours, I know Gordon, I went to see him when he was at West Brom and playing for Tony Pulis, and he used to say to me, forgive me if I've told this story before, he said to me in an interview, he said, my pass completion is really poor at this club in my stats, because what my job is to get the ball off the back four, pick a target up the field and hit that target. Now what often happens is that I won't quite hit that target, but we'll get a throw in from it, or we'll get a corner from it, and we'll score from that corner. So I'm doing my bit, but it doesn't show on my stats. And okay, you can sit here and people listen to this and say, oh great, let's all go back to lumping it up the field. It's not about that. but it's about playing to your strengths. It's about being pragmatic, and it's about doing what you need to do to give yourself a chance. And none of those teams last season gave themselves a chance. Daniel Farke will be fascinating at Leeds because he came up twice with Norwich and tried to and passed his way straight back to the Championship, playing the type of football you talk about, Mark. Be interesting to see if he's learnt his lesson.
I really agree with that, because what I find frustrating, and I know it's easy to offer your own football and wisdom, but I don't understand why teams lower down the league just don't make life uncomfortable for the big clubs.
Because it's not trendy anymore.
Just make life uncomfortable.
It's not trendy anymore.
Yeah, and again, you've heard it from me about 4 times already. You can only piss with the cock you've got. Sorry.
That's normally what you say off air.
Yeah.
Go on, to be fair.
Just to look at those fixtures, by the way, Burnley are away to Spurs, home to Sunderland, away to Man United, then at home to Liverpool, home to Nottingham Forest, and away to Manchester City. So there's your first few fixtures.
Yeah.
And actually, it doesn't get much better after that. Yeah, Villa after that, away. So, you could conceivably come away from that with a point.
And that is so difficult because, and I was talking to someone at Burnley about it, and they were saying, well, you've got to play all the teams twice. Yeah. I was like, yeah, but if you've got 2 points after your first 10 games, you're down.
You're down. That is. You've got to get points straight away. Yeah. You've got to get points straight away.
Right. Okay. This next question's from Tim. We hear about all the greats from the past, Stanley Matthews, Bobby Charlton, Pele and the like. Would they actually be any good in the modern game, or has football just moved on too much? Mark Clattenburg.
I think it's, the game's moved on. I think there's different eras in football. Even when I finished refereeing, I had players that you could put like Messi, Ronaldo. You look at players now, your Haaland, Yamal, all of these players now are different. So you've got different eras. You look at Pele. I think, and it was interesting, chatting off air and messaging off air. When we talk about, for example, I watched games from the 70s, and I had to watch the Chelsea Leeds game. Was it the FA Cup? Yeah. And I'm thinking, Mamma Mia, there wasn't much football played. It was just, damn right thuggery. It was just fighting, bad tackles. But there was not much skill that we see in today's game. And I think Pele, yes, in his day, and you watch him individually, it was brilliant to watch his skills. Same with Maradona. Your Bests, I've watched, video footage of George Best, and I think, wow, what a player. But there were wonderful players in their era, and I don't believe you can compare that era to today's era. I think they're completely different games. The rules have changed. The game's got quicker, and people could say we're Pele, we're the best nutrition, the best fitness coaches, the best could be in this modern era, one of the best players in the world, but you can't say that, unfortunately.
That's why I think Maradona's the greatest footballer ever, because if you watch the footage of the way he was treated, and the skill and the talent he brought to bad football pitches, the poise, the elegance and the balance and the cheating. I mean,
so we know he's playing number 10 in your team.
You certainly do. We're going to come on to that in a minute.
It's just as well I've changed mine. I've actually left him out of my team. How can you do that? But I have, as we'll find out. I get all that, Mark, and just to play to that theme a bit, I was asked a few years ago, I think it was when the 50-year anniversary of the 1966 World Cup final came around, I was asked to watch it and do something for male sport. First time I'd ever watched it in full. That's really difficult to get hold of that footage, and I watched it, 1966 World Cup final. It sounds like heresy to say it. The football's really poor. It's really instructive to watch it, actually. It's really educational to watch it. The standard of football is miles away from what it is now. You watch them take a corner in that game, for example, and it sounds insulting, but it's true. They take corners the way that I used to take corners when I was playing for the school. Just kick it as far as you can into the box and hope somebody heads it in. And that, honestly, and the players who stand out in that, from that cup final, which I have to say was played on an awful heavy waterlogged pitch. So fair enough, there's a mitigating circumstance there. Bobby Charlton is head and shoulders above. Alan Ball, well, Jeff Hurst gets all the plaudits, of course, for scoring the hat-trick. People who played in that final, I've lucky enough to interview 2 or 3 of them before they passed away. Gordon Banks was one. I remember Gordon Banks saying to me, forget what they say about Jeff Hurst, Alan Ball was man the match. They all say Alan Ball was man the match. And you can see his influence on that game because his energy is such that he's the only one who's still running in extra time. He's the only one who's still got the engine. Bobby Charlton's the best player by a mile. He's the only one who has the ability to play, drive forward, get his head up, pass the ball. So that all plays to what you're saying, Mark. However, football skills are football skills. All right, football is still about have you got a first touch? Can you control it? Can you pass it? Can you use both feet? Can you get a head up when you've got the ball? And have you got awareness? Are you brave? Are you physically strong? If you've got all those things, you'll be a player. All these players that we talk about had all of those things. Yeah. And if you add to that better pitches, and a much nicer football to kick, easier football to kick, rules that suit them, they're not getting booted up the arse all the time, better nutrition, better recovery from injury, they'd be absolutely
less
up there.
Boozing.
There'd be less boozing, less steak and chips, they'd be right up there, of course they would.
And I totally agree with you. Thanks for that. A great question though, Tim. And I always put it like that. Can you imagine all of those great names playing in the modern game? I can.
Imagine
you could put
Maradona on a perfect Wembley pitch.
It'd be magical to see. Pele as well. Right, if you want to get involved in this debate, email us, whistleblowers@dailymail.com. Remember the socials on X, Blowers Pod, on TikTok, Whistleblowers Podcast, Instagram @Whistleblowers Pod. Right, we should bring you up to date with this fascinating and engaging development of our DIY project with our fantastic sponsors, Wix Trade Pro. I call them fantastic because they finally delivered some items to my house, which are working.
How many items did you order?
2 items.
Oh, 2 items.
2 high-value items that I found on the website by putting in the most valuable thing available from Wix Trade Pro.
Can I just take us down a very brief tangent here? I hope I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I recently clocked up 25 years at the Mail. 26 actually, but 25 on staff.
Is that the Rolex you've got on, is it?
And if you do 25 years, you don't get money or stuff like that, but you get a gift. You get a gift. So I've been sent a link to a website and told that I can choose my gift from the website, and it's very generous.
Is it Wix Trades Pro?
There's some nice.
Is this table?
There's some nice stuff on there. Okay, there's some nice stuff. There's like bicycles and televisions. There's some nice stuff, and I'm very grateful. I'll end up choosing. Oh, sorry, Vicky will end up choosing something for us. Yeah. But it's the most random thing in the world. So there's a section for sewing machines. There's a section for sewing.
This is so Daily Mail, isn't it?
Hello, 1955. There's a section for model railways.
All right, Rod Stewart.
What is that? It's totally bizarre.
Do you not just get the most expensive item and then resell it? Is there any clause that says you can't do that?
I'm not going to suggest. Well, all I'm going to say is that's not the first time that suggestion's been put to me. Anyway, I'll probably find that once this podcast goes out, I'll go to log on to that website and my password will be invalid. I would imagine. I've probably just absolutely screwed myself.
Well, one thing we know about the personalities on this podcast is that Mark Clattenburg likes a high value item. You can tell from his wardrobe, from his luggage, from his choice of glasses,
from the company he keeps,
from the deep hue of his skin, that he likes good stuff, from his jewellery. So, Mark, I think you're the most qualified to pass judgment on this table in front of us. So I don't know if you'd like to share a few words. You've not been here recently to see it in person, but what's your take on this bit of kit?
I actually think it's developing very, very well. I think when I was inside the studio, we didn't have the table fully made. And I think what Ian's done with his joinery skills and his use of the drill has been fantastic. And I think now we're starting to see the finished product. And I think now that your Wix mug sits on the table without it falling off is a bonus in itself.
Come on, mate. Be honest, it's an absolute shit show. You can't see it from the angle I can see it from. I've obviously put one bit on upside down. The screws hanging out everywhere. I don't know who has to, because obviously the studio is used for other podcasts in the week when we're not here. Heaven knows who has to lump this thing out of the studio and back in again. Yeah. But I'm glad it's not me. What we can say is it's solid.
Yeah,
I'm going to give it a boot. It's solid. That's what it is.
It needs sanding.
It's a solid bit of kit.
That's a splinter hazard at the moment.
Yeah.
I should say I did get my strimmer this week, which is now stressing me because I tried to be sensible, got something electric, thinking that's maybe better for the environment than an old 2-stroke operator. But it's just not. It's not enough for the work I need to do, for the hard graft that needs to be done in the jungle and the undergrowth of.
What you mean is your gardeners complained it's not good
gardener's
enough.
Fury. I mean, the ghillie and the gamekeeper couldn't believe the sight of my gardener trying to get that done. Right, down to our all-time players
here we
again.
go.
Now, we should start with the public poll on Instagram, right? Because we asked the good listeners of Whistleblowers to tell us what they thought who had the best team. Now, bringing up the rear with 25% approval rating is Mark Clattenburg.
Oh, it's changed.
And an equal 38%, the math doesn't make sense to me here, but equally 38%, you and I, Ian.
Oh, it's
neck
changed.
and neck.
I was last when I looked at that poll.
Yeah, that's because you've got a Nokia 6210. It takes a
all
while.
my friends did what I asked them to do then. All my friends did what I asked them to do. They voted for me.
Ian's been looking at his Bebo poll.
Yeah.
Right.
So 38, 25.
That's right, yeah. Which,
I'm going to go back up. Mine will go back up with my choice today.
I mean, there's a questionable percentage point somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the maths up to 101.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Something is not right. Yeah, something's not. It was clearly a Donald Trump, Elon Musk poll, that one.
Yeah.
Right, so going back to our teams then, this is refresh your memory. So Mark's got 4-4-2. Peter Schmeichel, the Danish goalie. Kyle Walker at right back, Vincent Kompany and Pepe at centre half, Maldini on the left. Then in midfield, Figo and the Pig's Head on the right, Patrick Vieira and World Cup hero Andres Iniesta on the inside, which is, again, impressive, right? But Ian's gone for a 4-2-3-1 modern football approach here. Buffon and goals, Phil Neal at right back, and an orthodox United Liverpool pairing at centre half, Vidic and Hansen, Ashley Cole at left back, can't argue with that, really. Defensive midfield combination, right? So two holding midfielders, Busquets and Mark's best friend, Roy Keane. And then thrilled to see that he's gone for King Kenny as his right-sided midfielder.
The more you read my team out, the more I fall in love with it. I love my team.
It's hard to, when I hear it read out, it's hard to argue. And I'm so upset that I haven't managed to shoehorn Kenny Dalglish into my team. Oof, it's going to be tough. Right, so I've gone for a 4-4-2. Neville Southall as number one, Cafu at right back, Paolo Maldini and Franco Baresi as my defensive midfielders, Andy Robertson on the left of defence, David Beckham right midfield, Zinedine Zidane, his Real Madrid teammate, and then I've got Graham Souness for a bit of violence and winning mentality in midfield. Now,
you're really pleased with your central defensive partnership of Maldini and Baresi. Now, you were boasting about this on socials this week. Now, what is it you're so pleased about?
They played, I think it was 190 games together, roughly, or thereabout, and they conceded 23 goals when they played centre half together.
Well, I mean, that would be a brilliant stat were it true.
Is it not true?
And I quote, the 23 goals in 196 games stat associated with Maldini and Baresi is a misinterpreted or indeed fabricated statistic. While they did play together frequently for Milan, they did not concede only 23 goals in 196 games. In reality, they played more than 400 matches together, conceding 298 goals, which is closer to an average of 23 goals per season across the 13 seasons. So you were only, by my rough maths, 275 goals out.
So there. 23 goals per season.
Well, that's a theory as to maybe why this stat gets bandied about by internet warriors like yourself.
Okay.
So apart from that, it's a great stat.
Once again, it's taken Ian a week to disprove my statistics.
No, it took one message from Henry, our producer.
Henry's dug me out. Jane has been in touch. She says, Souness, vindication. She called for him to be in and she got it. Pedro says, if Maradona doesn't get a mention soon, I'm leaving. And Leo quite rightly says, is it just me or is this all getting a wee bit Eurocentric? Which is very true. It is very true. Yeah,
it talks about Maradona.
Well, we've not got to that yet.
Okay.
So let's pick our left-sided. Well, for me, it's a left-sided midfielder, and I think you can answer my question straight away based on what I've said about in every podcast. I've gone for Maradona. I think the most naturally talented footballer. I would even venture more talented. This is going to wind people up than Messi.
Yeah, that doesn't wind me up. Doesn't wind me up. I mean, as it stands, he's not in my team, but I'm not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. So. And again, I said to you last week how it fries my brain thinking of some of the players that you got to leave out. I mean, look, what a talent. There's no point in me sitting here and telling you what a brilliant player Maradona was. We all know. Yeah. And we've said it before. And it played at a time when he was, especially when he played for Napoli, he was just butchered every time he got the ball. How he survived, and never mind thrived, is beyond me. Absolute genius. And I think the Maradona-Messi debate is a completely alive one.
Who are you going for?
Oh, in my team?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go for... So I've gone for 4-2-3-1, so I'm now coming across. So I had Kenny on the right, shoehorned him in there, not his position, shoehorned him on the right. So this is my number 10, where I could have had Maradona there, probably should have Maradona there, but I'm going for Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah, hard to argue with that.
Had he not, he was a brilliant player. And a player with gifts that I don't think we've seen in the English game since. I honestly don't think we have.
Rooney had a bit of Gaza, I thought. But when he was barreling forward with the ball at his feet when he was 17, 18.
But he didn't have that technical genius that Gaza had. Gaza had natural genius. He really, on a kind of George Best levels. He absolutely did. And I know that what he did in the cup final in 91, was it? The Spurs Forest Cup final, when he butchered Gary Charles and then he butchered Gary Parker, I think, and didn't get sent off when he should have done. But he did himself. That knee injury, he went off to Lazio, having done his cruciate, and that just took that, because surgeries weren't as advanced then, it took that half a yard away, and we never saw it again. We saw it when he played for Rangers.
Brilliant at
a
Rangers,
little bit. Yeah. Well, quite a lot. But I tell you, that it robbed him of so much, and it robbed us of so much. At his best, I've not seen many like him.
I saw Gaza quite a lot when he played for Rangers, and it was magic.
Yeah,
you could just tell he was a level above everybody.
And that sight of him, which when I think of Gaza, I always think of him getting the ball in a congested area, turning away, sticking his elbows out, because he knew people were coming either side, and then he had that acceleration to get away.
Kicks, incredible, vision, incredible. Yeah. Right, Mark Clattenburg, who are you going for?
I've just about Paul Gascoigne, because I'm a Newcastle fan, of course, and I remember his first game. I was at St James's Park when he came back for Tottenham, and all of the newsagents in the whole of the city centre had sold out of Mars bars, and everybody was carrying these Mars bars up to St James's. Everybody was just throwing the Mars bars at Paul Gascoigne, and he just got one. This typical character, Paul Gascoigne. He picked one up, opened it, and had a bite. It was absolutely class.
That's a great story, but I'm not sure whether I believe it, because I can't picture any Geordie worth his salt having a Mars bar in his pocket for more than 5 minutes without eating it.
No, that's not Greg's. It wasn't made by Greg's.
It wasn't deep fried.
I was briefly the voice of Greg's, and Mark's right.
Anything you haven't done. I was briefly the voice of Greg's. Like you just say, oh yeah, I was the voice of Greg's for a while.
It was all about I
love that.
Their chicken range. I was going to say Gaza. I was at the game when Gaza booked the referee, by the way, Mark, which was
brilliant. Yeah,
you've never seen all fans united in the hatred of a referee than at that moment.
He
got booked for booking the referee.
Ridiculous.
Go, Mark. Who you got?
No, so I'm going to go, because I've got 4-4-2, so I can still put all Maradona in my team, but I'm going to go because I want to stay on the left. So I'm going to pick Cristiano Ronaldo on the left. So I'm going to try to get all the balance in my team. I think Cristiano Ronaldo in the modern day is one of the best players in the world. I think what he did in all of the leagues, Spain, England, Italy, he's doing it again in Saudi Arabia. His stats are incredible. And I think as a player, and the way I'm developing my team, he will give us the balance on the left. He'll give us goals. He'll give us pace. And I just think, for me, Cristiano Ronaldo fits my team at the moment.
Excellent stuff. Right, there we go.
I just want to know what the voice of Greg's had to do to be the voice of Greg's. When you were the voice of Greg's, what did you have to do? I just want to know. What did you do?
Oh, I'll let you
I love Greg's cheese and onion pasta.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
If you want to get fat quick, that's the way to go. But buy it. They're worth it.
Let me see if I can play this to you. I think I can play it to you. Right, I know this is. I need you to get away, Mark.
The voice of Greg's.
This is going to make you laugh, boys. Come on, boys. Here we go. Greg's.
Your lunch could be so much better. You deserve a Greg's. Loads of filling flavour and tons of choice, like a southern fried chicken baguette, potato wedges, and a drink from just $4.95. Lunch like winners, people. Lunch like legends. Lunch like you mean it. Greg's, bag some joy. Prices may vary. See in shop for details.
I bet you knocked that off in one take as well, didn't you? I bet you knocked that off in one take. I could feel you salivating as you say that. Gordon Smart, the voice of Greg's. Love
proud
it.
of that, by the way. That was the highlight of my career. And I did get 3 Greg's as a thank you for that as well, which was even better. Eh?
I'd love to know the kind of creative process that went when they were trying to decide who they were going to approach to become the voice of Greg's, and how they ended up at your door.
Greg's, bag some joy.
Brilliant. Other bakers are available, by the way.
Yeah, Baines in Scotland's pretty good as well, to be fair. Right, we'll be back on Thursday for the next instalment of Whistleblowers. Until then, make sure you follow us on socials. And Mark, it lies to you. And you've got plenty of practice this week filming Gladiators. Give us a blow of the whistle. If you want to watch more episodes of Whistleblowers, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll keep you up to date all the way through the summer with everything that's happening in the world of football.